and welcome to Out and About in Ireland. On this week's programme, I'm delighted to be at the Johnstons Festival in Slane. Over the next hour, we'll bring you the colour and excitement from the festival, as well as lots of features from around the country. But first, here's a glimpse of what to expect.
On this week's show, we visit Waterford, where the new street gardens are brightening up the city.
You know, it's a little bit like a summer festival here in Waterford. I think Waterford's been dying, reaching out for something like this, something new.
Paul shows us how to create the perfect paella dish while having some fun in the kitchen.
Told you guys, this is an absolute showstopper of a dinner party dish.
We also head to Armagh for the unveiling of a statue in memory of the Armagh rail disaster.
It just reflects what we're here to commemorate today.
And Rory heads along to the Ballycroy National Park Visitor Centre to learn all about the park and wildlife that live within it.
The Owen Duff River is the main one that goes through the park.
All this and more on this week's Out and About in Ireland.
So much to look forward to on tonight's programme, but first I caught up with one of the organisers, Michael Scully. What a wonderful weekend this has turned out to be. So Michael, how did you originally come up with the idea for the festival?
Well, the original idea came up, Yasmin. It was a twofold idea. First of all, we wanted to pay tribute to the memory of the late Adrian Johnston, and secondly, we wanted to bring the music of the Johnstons to a new generation of folk music enthusiasts, because the Johnstons were in around from the mid-60s to the late 70s, and lots of the new people around Slane now wouldn't have known much about them. So primarily that was the idea of the festival, and our first festival was in 2011. This is our fourth festival, and on that concert of our first festival in 2011 was in the TLT Tierra and Drogheda, and there were over 900 people at it, which was great for us. And the performers themselves, Lucy Johnston, Paul Brady, Mick Maloney and Michael Johnston, and we had a guest singer with them that night called Niamh Parsons, and that was the first time that most of them had played together in over 40 years. So it was a huge occasion, and it was a great boost for us on our first festival to get us off the ground. And of course now it's a regular event in the calendar. You have everyone from the folk music tradition coming here to experience the festival here. That's the idea of it, Yasmin. We hope that it will grow. We started off the first year, it was a 2-day event. The second year was 3 days. The last year was a 3-day event, and this year now we're up to 4 days. So we're hoping that we can grow on that, and that and invite other communities and groups in the parish to be part of the festival, and maybe make it a week-long thing. It doesn't necessarily have to be the whole time folk music and that kind of thing, you know, but we would see ourselves going in the direction of a week-long festival. Oh, well, of course, as you say, in addition to the folk music, there's a lot of other things going on as well. There's a lot of other things going on. The arts and crafts people are part of the festival. The Slane Forum is part of the festival. Slane Tourism is part of the festival. It's you know, there are more groups coming on board with us as the year the festival develops, should I say, and it's great to have them with us, you know. And of course the reason that you're holding the festival here is that the Johnstons have a specific link to Slane itself. Exactly, Yasmin, and where we are sitting is in the former home of the Johnstons folk group. They were born and raised in this premises here in Slane. They had a number one hit in 1966 in Ireland. Lucy Johnston was only 16 years of age at the time. Her sister Adrian was only 18 and Michael was 22. That was a huge achievement for young people from a local village like Slane, and probably at the time ourselves here in Slane didn't realise the magnitude of what they had achieved, you know. But then as the group developed itself through its phases in the next years, recording albums and singles and all that kind of stuff, they were really a very ahead of their time folk group, if you know what I mean. They were the only group at the time, as far as I can imagine, that were doing 4-part harmonies, and they weren't singing rebel songs, or they were off the mainstream of folk, but what they done was fantastic. And one particular album called The Barley Corn, it was voted the album of the year by the New Musical Express readers in the late 60s, and that would have been a huge accolade at that time. But for the time that they existed, like, you know, they were really something, the Johnstons, and we're very proud of them here in Slane.
met up with successful folk musicians Ben and Colin Sands. So the Johnstons themselves were really influential. How did they influence you in your style of music?
Well, we heard them first probably on the radio. We don't know. We lived in a small farm up in County Down, and we didn't have much access to entertainment really. So the radio probably was the first time, and we heard a lot of music first time on the radio. And well, as I remember, they were like a breath of fresh air. There's something very fresh about them, and it's quite simple with their line-up in the beginning anyway, with Michael and the two sisters. Just one guitar, and it was clear and crystal and fresh, and the harmonies were probably what attracted me to them, I must say.
And what about yourself?
The same here. I didn't know they were from Slane at all. They were just people who sang about travelling people and weavers. It's easy known the weavers as they come into town with their long yellow aprons and their ribbons hanging down and their ribbons tied before them and their ribbons in their hand. It's easy known the weavers, for they never get their man. Oh, they never get their man. Oh, they never get their man. It's easy known the weavers, for they never get their man. I didn't learn the words very well. I got them all mixed up there. But there was that thing. I mean, the internet and all that's the magical way of music travelling around the world really fast these days.
Sure.
But in those days, I think, as Ben said, the songs coming out of the radio were very powerful. And I remember we went to play in East Berlin around about 1974, 40 years ago, and there's a band there called Wacholder. And they were singing a Johnson song called The Lambs in the Green Fields, or The Lambs in the Green Hills.
Yes.
They had all the harmonies and everything exactly. So I think their music was travelling and influencing people in all kinds of places. Because that's the thing about the recorded music, you never know where it will turn up. But I remember we were just saying as we walked around Slane here today and looking at the whole atmosphere and the art exhibitions and all these wonderful things they have here today. I think it was 1968 we went as children to the Castle Bar song competition. We were accompanying a singer from Newry, and the special guests, the MC that night, the compere was Terry Wogan.
Oh really?
Nobody knew who it was at that time.
Goodness
Totally
me.
unknown. Yeah.
Goodness me.
And the special guests were the Johnsons.
Gosh.
Do you remember that?
Oh, I
Ben?
remember
Yeah.
it. Well, they arrived in a Morris Oxford estate car.
Gosh.
And we were saying there, now that's stardom there now, those folks in the Morris Oxford estate, that's what we would aspire to,
Yeah.
And it was a fantastic experience.
Well, it's amazing that you can still feel that excitement and remember the atmosphere that was there with them arriving at the venue.
Absolutely.
So it must be very special for you to be coming to perform at the festival here this year.
Very much so, because we have all these memories going back of a band that influenced so many people. I got a really nice email today from a man in Meath called Eamon Riley, who's coming along to the concert, and he said, we saw the Johnstons on television in black and white, and they put colour into our lives. And when you mention coming to this festival to people, as soon as you mention the Johnstons, people smile, because I think that there was that kind of energy, optimism. Probably their songs came from a more innocent time.
Yeah.
But there was a feel-good thing about it. There was that youth and energy in their singing that can never be pretended. It was very real. And I think it's just great for us to come along and be part of it.
Well, and the thing is, because you're so used to travelling across Europe to large, massive venues as well, so coming here to something very intimate and in Ireland as well must be quite special for you.
It's fantastic. In a couple of weeks' time, we'll be playing in Nuremberg in Germany at a massive big city festival with maybe a couple of 100,000 people at it. And this tonight here in Slane will be every bit as good. We'll enjoy it just as much.